Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I'm your host, Matthew Kadish, producer of the Salty Nerd Podcast. And it's time for me to introduce my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Matt Vader 74. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, buddy. How are you? Chat was starting to take bets about whether we're going to start on time or not. So, here we are. We're on time. It's amazing. It's great. Welcome.
Yes,
welcome, everybody. It's going to be a fun show.
And of course, joining us as always is Brian from the Popcast. Brian, you're looking a little different today, but you're here, you're queer, you're our gender non-conforming shield against all things woke.
Yep, I gained 50 pounds in a week, and I'm a lot more white. So thank you.
Yes. Just kidding. Shane from the Popcast is joining us this morning. It's very big pleasure to have you here, Shane. We know that it's a very rare occurrence for you to come on other live streams, so we appreciate you slumming it here on Salty Saturday.
Always slumming it with you, Matt. Always.
Indeed. And our guest of honor, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the beard that has no equal, Nerdrotic, Gary. Thank you for being here today.
Woo. We're all wearing hats.
We are, indeed.
And I've brought the slum to a whole new lower level. So,
yes, thank you.
Let's do this.
Well, just to subvert expectations, you showed up early and we were able to start on time and get everything going. So no one knows what's going to happen today. But before we get going, I also want to just give a shout out to our Saturday superstars, Scotty Dub, Bob Dorsey, and the AstroNerdBoy. Scotty Dub still sits at $500 for his all-time super chat. Thank you, sir. We appreciate all your wonderful support of the show. And of course, our loyalist Joker Voice and Mexican Iron Man. These are the guys who are the most consistent donators during our live streams. And Backyard TARDIS and JT Gunn, who are our top super thankers. We appreciate all you guys. And also, Scotty Dub is our top contributor, as always. We really appreciate his support and love and all that good stuff. So, real quick, I just want to give everyone who showed up in the chat a quick shout out. So we got Ivan the Mad Vandal, who had a very long tirade because he's not going to be able to be here for the actual live stream. We have Anthony Mark, who's probably coming at us from the beach. Arn Mueller. We've got JT Gunn. We have Danny's mom Penny in the chat. Sean Stackhouse. Really old movies. Yummy, eat me up. Yes, our super speaker champion, Gavin Blackburn, Nadia from the At Home All Day podcast. We got Bob Dorsey, our Saturday superstar. Good to see you, Bob. We got Stone Cold's Beer Cooler. We got Thrasher 613, The Joker's Voice, Chappie, Kenneth LaRoque. Who else do we have here? Cocho Dragon.
Never going to get through them all.
Eaton Nas.
Over 100.
Mr. Farnsworth.
It'll be fun watching him try.
I know.
No Money G.
Watch him butcher names for a half hour. It's
Quantum Cat 76. Shaka Zulu 12. Mexican Iron Man. Everyone who showed up early in the morning, thank you so much for being here. And of course, we got Danny the Dork Knight in the chat as well.
Oh, Danny's here? Don't push that button.
Danny is here. Oh, what button would that be, Matt?
Not the one. Oh, there you go. Man,
we acknowledge Danny the Dork Knight.
You're an asshole. What do you do that for?
And we want to give everyone a chance to become an SJW, aka Salty Justice Warrior, by purchasing a T-shirt in the which link is in the description, right from Mixed Tees, which is Brian and Shane's store, which they do a great job over there, high quality T-shirts, and you can see my Salty Justice Warrior.
No, you can't. The camera says no.
Right. Camera says no. Not doing that. And our YouTube member sub goal for the show is 5 new members. So
I think we need
5
to raise
new members.
Let's do 10. Let's do 10 today.
No, we got to do 5.
Gary's here. We can do like 100. Let's do 100.
And
200. Go for it.
Also want to give a big shout out to the Legion of Memers who've been very gracious with their memes. In fact, we've got a meme dropping tomorrow that they did where basically it was a clip from Vader's epic subway rant. And it was a really funny one, and we can't wait to share it with you guys. Now let's get to some super chats, and then we will go right into the topics for today. So we got the Joker's Voice for $10. Hail S&P, hail chat, hail Nerdrotic. Star Trek, Star Wars, DCEU, and Marvel are terrible. In other news, water is wet. Vegas Life calls. Gonna go gamble with the house's money. Hashtag keep talking. Thank
I
you,
like how Joker just pops in, drops a 10 spot, and then bails. That's what he does every week. He says, "All right, I'm gonna go do stuff. You guys have fun."
I got stuff to do. Mexican Iron Man for $10. Hail S&P. Hail Nerdrotic. Gary. Someday we need to brainstorm Crisis on Infinite Tijuanas.
We need to do that this year.
Yeah.
Mexican Iron Man.
And our salty superstar of the day, Scotty Dub for $99.99. Great to see another superb live salty Saturday, gents, and with excellent guest stars in the mix. Love the Popcast recent Galaxy Quest documentary, and as always, a big fan of the Friday Night Tights crew. Enjoying the Salty Nerd Hunted video with Lynn Kabaczynski at the moment. Yes, our review of 1995's The Hunted, starring Christopher Lambert, dropped yesterday, and we had special guest Joe Esposito from the Ozone Nightmare podcast and filmmaker Lynn Kabaczynski, who you may recognize.
Can I ask you a question, Matt?
Yeah.
Are Christopher Lambert, are his balls in this movie?
His balls are not in this movie. No Christopher Lambert ball sack, unfortunately. But it was still a good movie. We had a lot of fun, and Lynn Kabaczynski is a wealth of knowledge about these little lesser known hidden gems of movies.
Can I thank Scotty Dub for watching the Galaxy Quest doc? Unlike it was not watched by many, so thank you, Scotty. I really appreciate that.
I thought it was a very good documentary, personally.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. What happened? Yeah. YouTube, help me out here. Come on.
Yes, and if you guys want to check out our review of Galaxy Quest, the Salty Nerd podcast did one not too long ago, so just search for that on YouTube. And Doomed, for $2. Prodigy canceled despite the second season near complete. Yes, in fact, that's the perfect segue to get into our first story here, which is, of course, Star Trek Prodigy has been canceled after one season at Paramount Plus. Now, this news dropped yesterday where basically Paramount's canceling a number of underperforming shows, but they're not just canceling them. They're literally pulling them off the streamer so that no one can watch them ever again. And Star Trek Prodigy, which was their animated kind of like kids, teens targeted type show starring Captain Janeway, it didn't get a very warm reception to begin with, and it doesn't seem like many people tuned into it. I personally never watched it simply because it didn't look like Star Trek to me. But Vader, I know that you're a big fan of animated fare. So, like, what was your take on Prodigy?
I've watched probably 4 episodes, enough of this to try and get me into it. But then I just said, no, this isn't for me. This isn't Star Trek. It doesn't feel like Star Trek, like most of Kurtzman Trek, anything having that he has his tendrils on, it doesn't feel like Star Trek. It kind of feels like an adult show made for kids, animated in a weird style, starring a bunch of aliens before that I've never seen in Star Trek. You got the rock person, the mist person, the I think it's what the pig people, what are they called? I forget their names, but one of them is supposed to be one of those that's designed really poorly, and and the main characters aren't anything like I've ever seen in Star Trek before either. So I never got into it, and they're trying to make it some kind of pseudo sequel to with Voyager characters and stuff, and I never was able to buy into the show. So I don't feel like anybody else was either. So I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised that this show has had a problem finding their audience outside of a hardcore Star Trek. I'm going to watch anything with the logo on it crowd. You know what I'm saying? Not surprised this is getting canned at all.
No, Shane, I know that you've watched this show. So what was your take on this? Do you think that it was unfairly canceled and maligned?
I tell you, Vader, you screwed up, man. You needed to watch one more episode.
No,
and then it would have happened for you. Here's the thing about Prodigy. Of all the Star Trek new Trek shows, Prodigy probably had the most Star Trek heart. Even though it was gauged towards kids, it was also very positive, and it also had Kate Mulgrew, which, of course, you go back to Legacy Trek and you get a little bit of that. But here's the thing about Prodigy being canceled. Overall, it's a really good thing. And the reason it's good is because the cancellation of Prodigy is going to leave room for a little show called Star Trek Legacy. They previously weren't able to fit of course, Kurtzman said he's going to give you 50 weeks of Trek, which we'll see how that happens going forward. But with 50 weeks of Trek, you couldn't fit it. Even though Picard was canceled, they were going to bring in these miniseries, these TV movies. But now with Prodigy going away, if they do decide to do Star Trek Legacy, this now gives them room to do an entire new series. So, Prodigy, they might still sell it to Netflix or some other platform. But I think it's overall a good thing because, I would like to see a continuation of the series with Legacy. And so it gives it some room now.
So, Gary, we have this article that Shane shared with us earlier from Yahoo Finance, where basically it says Paramount, as we know it, has 2 years left at most. And it's been no secret that Paramount's been hemorrhaging money. In fact, there was a news article out not too long ago that basically said, shut down your streaming service. It's too expensive and it's not making you any money. And they've been having trouble with the Tyler Sheridan shows. Star Trek Discovery is ending. Prodigy is getting canceled. So they're really kind of scrambling and juggling, trying to figure out, okay, how can we be profitable on our streaming network? And Star Trek has always been kind of like the linchpin of their streaming service. And with the highs that they experienced with Star Trek Picard, they're probably a little bit more kind of focused on, okay, how can we get more Star Trek that people want out there in order to kind of consolidate our streaming service? But what's your take on this? Do you think that Paramount still has no idea what they're doing when it comes to Star Trek?
The short answer is they have no idea what they're doing. They never have. So remember, and I'm sure you remember, Matt, but this is for the audience too, that Star Trek Discovery was supposed to launch CBS All Access, but it got delayed. Mm-hmm. So it's like The Good Wife or was The Good Girl or whatever the show they did went before. But it was supposed to launch it. Remember CBS All Access? Then it turned into Paramount Plus. It's all lost money. It's never gotten subscribers. They've counted paused subscribers, which is people who don't subscribe anymore. And Prodigy being canceled, like, I can't believe it got the 2 seasons. I took in like a few minutes of it. Just to be somewhat informed, and I couldn't even be bothered to do that. Let's just say there's a multiverse out there where Star Trek is good, like Star Trek Discovery was good, Picard was good for all 3 seasons. I still wouldn't watch Prodigy. I don't care. I mean, it's not Star Trek. It looked like to me like a repurposed character, a bunch of repurposed character designs from another show, and let's throw in some Star Trek stuff in it. And that's not why I watch Star Trek. It's not why I watched it when I was a kid. Our buddy Rob just made a great video.
Great video.
Breaking down this whole thing. So I highly recommend you watch that. But like, yeah, he's a little older than me, but I watched Star Trek the original series as a 5 and 6 year old, and it hooked me in. Yep. I don't need to be dumbed down. No, I like it when the adults are smarter, much smarter, and I don't need to see myself. So I'm not surprised this happened. Paramount, if it's got 2 years left, that means it's probably going to be sold, or they're going to, if they were smart, they would listen to their, Matt, you might remember, one of their banks, one of their investors is the one who said, you should just kill Paramount Plus, and just license stuff. Because Taylor Sheridan, if they would have licensed all that, they'd be rolling in money right now. Although he did not make any, I loved what he said, by the way. Taylor, did you hear what Taylor Sheridan said?
No.
About the WGA? Oh, he's all, writers' rooms don't work for me. I hate writers' rooms. So they're all pissed at him right now.
Good for him.
He does all the work himself. That's why.
Yeah, he does. So they're all like just swarming him on trying. So the WGA members are trying to swarm him on Twitter. But he's right. Like sometimes writers' rooms work for some people if they're like a tight unit. But like even when Joss Whedon had a quote unquote, he didn't have a room. He had a bunch of people he worked with that he liked and understood. But Joss was in charge for Buffy and Angel. And that's the way it needs to be. You can't mandate that stuff. So I think Paramount needs to license their stuff. Will they be smart enough to just shut down their streaming service and do that? I doubt it, Matt. They'll probably get sold to Apple or something. And Star Trek will get relaunched again.
Well, what's funny is so like there's this whole like kind of concept of the streaming wars, and it all started around the lockdown when all these studios started coming out with their own streaming services, and the only studio that did not come out with a streaming service was Sony. And a lot of people are saying Sony has been the winner of the streaming wars because while everyone else has been sinking money into this sinking ship, Sony has just been licensing out their content and making a ton of profit off of it without any of the headache of having to manage a a streaming service.
And they do have the number one movie of 2023 so far.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, kind of like hindsight being 2020 and stuff like that. But what do you guys think that this Prodigy cancellation bodes for another animated Star Trek show like Lower Decks? Do you think Lower Decks days are numbered as well?
I mean, I don't know. I think that Lower Decks has got a good audience. It's strong. It's probably second most viewed now. So I think Lower Decks was actually beating Discovery in views, but Strange New Worlds is kind of a little bit more than Lower Decks. So I think it's probably safe because it's a little cheaper. But I mean, the days are numbered for most of the Star Trek shows, in my opinion. If they don't pull something out, I mean, I think we're going to end up with. I don't even think Starfleet Academy is going to happen after the writer's strike goes down. Once they realize they can't afford it, I think that's probably gone as well. The
funny part about Lower Decks is that like Star Trek season or like Picard season 3 and Terry, Lower Decks is made by a guy who is an actual fan of Star Trek. And you can tell when things are made by people that have a passion for what they're putting out. I'm not going to sit here and defend Lower Decks because it has a lot of misses in it, but there's an argument to be made out there that it's the best Star Trek in the whole Kurtzman era line, as far as the whole era that we like to watch. There's a lot of really fun stuff in that show. Now, is it great? No, but there's some gems in there. I enjoy watching Lower Decks from time to time, but there's also some really huge and goofy misses. But it's a cartoon. It's easy for me to take Lower Decks and just kind of stick it in this weird universe with Rick and Morty and stuff in it. So it is what it is. But I think all these Star Trek shows are probably heading towards the end here sooner than later.
Well, Gary, Paramount's come out and basically said that they're kind of readjusting their strategy when it comes to Trek to be more kind of like either movie or miniseries focused. We have the Section 33, is that
31.
correct?
31.
Section 31 with Michelle Yeoh, which now that she won an Oscar, she's like, okay, I'll do like 4 episodes and like that's it.
Yeah.
And also doing these like shorter miniseries event things cuts down on the cost of production and all that stuff. What do you think Paramount's strategy is going to be with Star Trek going forward?
I don't think we'll ever see a movie. That you'll hear a lot of talk about it, but they will crunch the numbers and see that nobody will watch it, no matter what happens. I mean, if Paramount has 2 years left, if Paramount Plus has 2 years left, that Star Trek has 2 years left. That's pretty much it. And at that point, I don't know. I think it just goes away for a little while and back into comic books and books. I wish there would be a good Star Trek, and they need to just start from scratch with something else. But again, is there a hunger for that? Probably not. If they would have thought about this 3 years ago, if they would have thought about this 2 years ago, if they would have thought about this, they might be able to change paths, but it's too late. I'm sorry to black pill everybody on it, but I mean, that's the reality of it. And the fact that we got, to varying degrees, some people liked it, some people didn't, and that's fine. But Picard season 3 is clearly the best thing they've ever put out, will ever put out. They will never equal it. And Shane, and I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but I don't know if legacy is like the thing we even want. Like are we guaranteed to have something good with legacy if it happens? And I remain very skeptical about that.
Yeah, there are no guarantees.
Sorry, Matt. I wish I could give you good news. I thought I do.
I agree with you, Gary. I think that I think the problem is that Terry Matalas and Picard season 3, it's at the top of the game. I mean, it's the sending off of our favorite TNG characters, and they did it in an incredible way with incredible story arcs and is just really well done. If you bring in legacy, I think there's going to be a focus on 7 of 9, and then you bring in the whole possibility of some element of wokeness that unfortunately Hollywood just can't stop doing. We've heard from insiders how many times that they're required to have a certain diversity in their writing staffs. They're required to have certain things, and unless you have a strong showrunner that can kind of tap all that down, but there's only a limit. I mean, all these people want to work. So there's a limit on how much they can push that back. And until, people continue to lose money the way they're doing, things won't change. So I think you're probably right. We probably got the best version we got. Me personally, I'd love to see if they're going to continue doing it. To me, any version of Star Trek Legacy that Terry Matalas is doing would probably be better than A Strange New Worlds or anything else that we currently have. So that's the kind of the way I look at it. If you want more Star Trek, if it's going to happen, Terry Matalas running it is the only way I see it being even remotely possibly good.
Well, Shane, Gary made a good point about the movies. It used to be that, a Star Trek movie, it cost $30 million. It was like, that was the sweet spot where basically they could make a Star Trek movie and make 3, 4, 5 times their investment back. And that was why Star Trek basically carried Paramount for so long. It was because they made it cheap, and the fan base carried it to multi-$100 million box offices. And with the J.J. Abrams era, where basically they turned Star Trek into like $100+ million production, they have yet to see it actually be profitable. So do you think that it would make sense for Paramount to be kind of like, hey, why don't we make smaller budget movies and try to actually turn a profit, as opposed to spending $200-300 million on a ensemble cast that is way overpaid for what they're bringing in?
Yeah, delusions of grandeur, right? I mean, let Chris Pine tell you himself. How many times has he said in the last couple of years, look, Star Trek isn't $1 billion a movie franchise. They need to make smaller movies that Star Trek fans actually want to see, focus on that, spend a little bit less, make double, triple your money. I mean, that's the way Star Trek has always been. I mean, even the actors who arguably aren't part of the financial part of the business understand that. So why don't studios? Because they have delusions of grandeur. They hire a guy like J.J. Abrams who says is going to make them $1 billion. And we all know just having a director isn't going to make that happen. You have to have a fan base that'll show up for it. And science fiction is a niche audience. The expectations can only be so high. It's not an Indiana Jones. It's not a Star Wars. It's Star Trek. It's intelligent. It's small. It's very guy centric, so it's just one of those kind of things that's never going to happen. They need to cut back, but will they? No, because nobody's smart enough to do it.
Guy. Okay. So we got some super chats I want to hit up here real quick. So we got Setlick Gaming for $10. Nerdrotic, live long and prosper. We have T. Stoney for $2. Picard Season 3 is the only Kurtzman era thing that's good. Yeah, I think I could agree with that. Wrong. Can we all agree with that?
I can.
Yes.
Agreed.
All right. We have Ryan for €20. Paramount's move to go back to basics, doing episodic seasons of Strange New Worlds is like old Trek, seemed a good response to fan complaints. I felt that they were at least trying. Maybe the magic is gone and forever lost. Yeah, it is interesting because Kurtzman era Trek they don't seem tone deaf. Like they do seem like they listen, but their execution is always off.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, I heard from a little birdie that Kurtzman and Jar Jar don't like each other anymore. I'll just say that. So, and I'm not defending Kurtzman. I think he's a moron. I think if he was smart, he would just be an EP, completely walk away, find some Star Trek people. This was like 3 years ago, by the way. It's too late now. Yeah. And to run his stuff, and he could just have his name on it. You'd be like Aaron Spelling. You get the money together, but creatively stay the hell away from it, right? And he didn't, and it still like permeates. Like Michelle Paradise is the showrunner for
Discovery.
Discovery. She's terrible.
Doesn't know anything about Star Trek.
Doesn't know anything about science fiction or fantasy.
Yeah.
We got the same problem with Hisrich over at The Witcher. You're bringing in people who like, these are niche things that you need to know about, or you will not be able to produce them. And we have had years of evidence of it. And you're right, Matt. You're absolutely right. Like there is things he's like, let's take the Discovery and put it, let's take Discovery and put it, thousands of years, but then he just makes it worse. I mean, like season 3, dude. Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery was it.
The burn. Yeah.
The burn.
Oh my Lord God.
It was the best name for
Kelpium Tantrum.
I need a stress ball.
I know. No, like it's so funny that a show with the acronym STD had a through line called The Burn.
Excellent.
It's really on the nose. So
It is, and like you made a point about like Michelle Paradise and Leslie Headland and all these radical feminists who get put in charge of beloved sci-fi franchises, and they don't get them, they don't like them, they're not fans of them, but because they check all the right diversity boxes, they get put in charge of them. And this is systemic, and we're going to talk about this in a later discussion topic, but this is systemic in Hollywood right now, where basically people who don't like what they're doing are being put in charge. And it's very obvious.
You got Noga Landau, who's doing Starfleet Academy, who came from the Nancy Drew series, and it's just another CW spinoff thing. And she's going to be co-show running with Alex Kurtzman on Academy. What kind of show do you think you're going to get?
And as a fan of the books, like I watched that show, and it was terrible. It was awful. I think they should. Any Nancy Drew fan, when you grew up reading Nancy Drew mysteries, you'd watch that show and you'd be like, "This isn't Nancy Drew."
Episode 1 of Star Trek Academy is going to be freshman orientation, where they tell everybody to respect each other's pronouns in their first assembly.
Do they do a land acknowledgement too?
Yeah, and also, why do they think making Tilly is a like? She's not a thing. Nobody likes Tilly.
No.
Right?
Well, a certain group likes Tilly. That's why.
Okay, so Latino Slant for $5. Saludos, salty nerds. Love Gary. Padres suck. And so does Indiana Janet. Mango owes Kadish a huge apology. And we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit in a different video.
Yeah, he does.
But want to give a big shout out to another salty Saturday superstar, Bob Dorsey. Not to be outdone by Scotty Dub for $99.99. Bob Dorsey for $100. I commend you guys for continuing to watch and hope. But what makes you think any new Trek will be good when most is trash? I like Picard season 3, but without the member berries, like sub in completely new actors, same story. Is it still good?
Hey Bob, we got a show on Thursdays, buddy. Come on by.
I think I think that Picard season 3, like if you put in different actors, it might have still been good because it felt more like Trek than anything that we'd gotten up to that point. Well, I had more issues with Picard season 3 than you guys did.
Yeah,
I made it very clear what my issues were.
You had a mental breakdown during episode 8, so I get it. Yeah, you lost your favorite character and you got a little crazy. So,
well, if you bothered to watch my videos, Shane, you'd see my argument as to why that was an issue. It wasn't just a personal issue.
They killed his boyfriend. Storytelling. They killed his boyfriend. He got mad. That's all.
Well, let me just tell you, for Star Trek Picard season 3, the reason that show is successful, and this is why I'm wearing a damn Terry Trek hat. It's where I'm wearing a Terry Trek shirt. Let me tell you something. Terry Matalas is the secret because of his show running capabilities. So as a showrunner, and I think Gary alluded to it earlier when he said something about Tyler Sheridan and the writer's room. Terry's in charge of his writer's room. I love Chris Monfett. I love Sean Trett. I love all those guys. But Terry's in charge of his room. And he's a fan of Star Trek. And so if you have that combination of things, that's where you end up having success. Look at James Gunn and what he's done. He loves what he's doing. He cares about it. He cares what the fans think. So you've got this element of you have to have a showrunner or somebody who's creating that actually has that passion and has the control and the ability to be a good showrunner. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out.
And we got one last super chat from Sci-Fi is Life for $5. I saw someone argue with this one piece and Netflix arguing that the bigger the budget, it must be a success. Well, I think that's pretty much standard. If budget's bigger, it has to be a success.
Oh, of course.
Otherwise, you're not going to make your money back.
Was a massive success.
Yeah, tell that to Amazon.
Yeah.
Rings of Power, right?
Well, what was even worse is Citadel. Gary, do you know anything about Citadel?
I do know, and it's only because I was doing Rings of Power research. Does anybody know Citadel? Chat. Anybody watching Citadel?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know about Citadel, we actually covered this a couple episodes back on Salty Saturday. It's the most expensive TV show that Amazon's ever produced. And then one of the reasons is
outside of Rings of Power.
Outside of Rings of Power. So you could even argue that the first season of Citadel was more than the first season of Rings of Power. because the $1 billion is for like multiple seasons of Rings of Power. But
yes, it's for at least 2. So you're right there.
Yeah.
Like
So what happened with Citadel was the Russo brothers wanted to create this like spy franchise, and they were busy at Netflix, and so they outsourced it to another showrunner who basically tanked his first season, and it was so bad that the Russos had to come in and completely reshoot the entire first season, and they had to drop it from 8 episodes to 6 because of budgetary concerns. But it was such a disaster for Amazon, and then they released the 6 episodes. I don't know if you watched it, Gary, but it was not a good show.
I did not watch it. Mrs. Nerdrotic watched it and said it wasn't very good. And per episode, it's $300 million for one season, by the way.
Yeah.
One season, $300 million. So that's $55-60 million an episode, give or take.
Still cheaper than Indiana Jones 5.
That is one episode cost as much as the Joker.
Oh my God. It's ridiculous.
That's insane.
I feel like someone in Hollywood needs to start investing in accountants, like people who actually have like, sound financial advice about like what to spend money on, because this thing's kind of getting out of control. But speaking of out of control, let's start talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, episode 2 of the new season. So guys, we're Star Trek fans, and on Salty Saturday, we covered in detail the entire first season of Strange New Worlds. It was a mixed bag. I tended to think that the first season of Strange New Worlds was okay, nothing special, but better than anything we had gotten up to that point from Kurtzman Trek. And this season, we're 2 episodes in, and I'm kind of, I still think it's okay, but it's kind of like a level down from okay that the first season was so far. This episode got a lot of criticism because it's a lot of talking. Like there's no actiony, interesting, exploring Strange New Worlds. It's basically a courtroom drama. It's a David E. Kelly episode, basically. And it's all about Una's trial for being genetically modified, which doesn't make any sense to begin with, but whatever. So we get a lot of monologuing this episode. And honestly, like I was watching this when I was kind of like sick with a stomach bug. And so I was drifting in and out of consciousness as I was watching it. And I don't think I really missed anything while I was like, out of it. But my take on this episode was like, it was meh. It was like, whatever. Like It didn't feel like a Star Trek episode. It just felt like a filler episode. And I think that this is kind of systemic with anything that Akiva Goldsman is involved with, because Strange New World is really Akiva Goldsman's baby. And if the rumors are true, he's the one who Kurtzman has kind of outsourced the bulk of Star Trek to. So we can thank most of the bad decisions to Academy Award winner Akiva Goldsman, who also wrote Batman and Robin, by the way.
Yes.
So Gary, I'd like to know, what was your take on the second episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds?
I did not watch it. That was
There's
my
your take.
I watched the first episode. I hate what they're doing. They're making Spock autistic.
Yeah.
That like I have so many fucking problems with that. Excuse my language. I have so many problems with that. But I can't get through it, dude. I just like enough. Plus I'm watching Secret Invasion, which is just really hurting my brain cells enough.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a bit too.
Oh, sorry, I didn't watch it, but
no, it's all right. I don't blame you.
We have a video coming out tomorrow called "They Don't Know Spock," which I think you'll enjoy, Gary, because we're with you, man. This is they're really doing some terrible things. Now, the good news is after episode 3, perhaps you'll be able to put your mind at ease that the world is a different place, and that we're not actually living in the correct universe. But you're right; they're just destroying Spock. Spock is now an emotional, dumb character. If you go back, Spock was a legend. Spock, TOS Nimoy Spock is just the greatest character. He's like number 20 on all pop culture characters of all time. And the fact that they've made him the laughing stock, the butt of the joke of this series, the comic relief in episode 2, which I will tell you, I believe is the best episode. And I've seen the first 6 episodes of this season, is the best episode in a season and a half of Strange New Worlds. Now, if that'll tell you anything, Matt, about how you feel about the rest of it. But I will say that, classically, Star Trek courtroom scenes have been good episodes. If you go back to Measure of a Man, and you go back to Court Martial and TOS, there are some really good court scene. And I do think that that Yetiti did a good job coming in from American Gods. She had actually a good episode. I think it was pretty good. But Spock, what they're doing to him is just ridiculous. And he gets up on stand. He's the only character who gets up on the stand. And what do? He cracks a joke. I mean, come on, guys. What the fuck? Does Spock crack jokes in serious, dramatic situations? No, because Star Trek is a dramatic show. Like, it's got tinges of levity at the beginning and the ends of the program, but it's a drama. And they've turned Spock into this joke. And there's a whole scene where he's sitting down with the Vulcan Jag, right? And he's having this conversation, and you see Ortegas is kind of like, which is supposed to be a little funny.
Sorry for the outburst. Yeah.
Yeah. And he comes over and says, sorry. Would Spock have said sorry for the outburst? No, he would have pretended like nothing happened. He would have come over, and Benga would have said, well, is everything okay over there? And what do you mean, doctor? What do you mean everything's okay? It would have been played off in that way. And Spock wouldn't be the butt of the joke. Spock would give it as well as he takes it. At the end of Journey to Babel, when Spock is his parents, we meet his parents for the first time in TOS and Journey to Babel. Nobody knows it's his parents. He doesn't even tell his crew members. When they show up on board, Kirk and Bones learn that, oh my God, the ambassador is Spock's parents. Like, it's this big shocker for all of us. It was a wonderful scene. At the end of that episode, right, Bones is trying to dig up dirt on Spock because Spock's always getting the better of him, right? He doesn't understand him. So he asks his mom, Amanda, he's like, when he was a kid, did he ever, do anything, run and play with other children? And she goes, well, he did have a fat teddy bear, right? And so Bones is getting this joke in on Spock, and he's like laughing at his expense. And what does Spock tell him? Well, yes, doctor, but my teddy bear was alive and had 6-inch fangs. So Spock gives it back to him. You see what I'm saying? In Strange New Worlds, Spock just stands there looking like a stupid idiot through most of the episodes. Just, I guess you guys got me. It's just, really frustrates me.
I just actually watched that episode of the animated series because there's an episode of that where Spock goes back in time to interact with his young self, and it's an adventure with his giant teddy bear creature, and it's actually a pretty good episode. And young 10-year-old Spock in that show is much more put together and much more well aligned and Spock-like is in the cartoon than the, however old this Spock is in Strange New Worlds. It's really kind of funny now that I think about it. This series, I'm not one of these people that can sit there and tell you why I didn't like something or dislike something or whatever. All I can tell you is that just my feeling is that I did not like this episode. I watched Robert Meyer's video here last night, and he touched on things that kind of explain it. It's like they take things from other episodes and other series and other sci-fi shows and soap operas, and they just steal shit, right? And they put it in a show, and then they spit out something with a Star Trek label on it. And that's what this episode feels like. It's what it feels like. They've just taken bits and pieces from other courtroom dramas and
they're all like that
uniform on it. And it's not good. It's really, really poorly put together. I was also thinking last night, it's like we reviewed, like Matt said, we reviewed all of season 1 weekly on this show. And in the end, I ended up liking 7 out of 10 episodes of season 1. And that just means like I liked them better than I didn't. That doesn't mean they're A+ episodes or anything like that, but that's a 70% rating, right? So far this year we've gotten 2 episodes. So we've seen 12 episodes of Star Trek. So that 7 to 10 now is down to a 7 out of 12. 70% is a C. It's a C grade in school, right? 7 out of 12 is 58%. In my school growing up, that's an F, right? 58% is an F. So they are failing as overall as a whole from what we've seen so far as an overall Strange New Worlds as far as all their episodes go. And that's not good. They have to do better. So it's not good, man.
What was funny about this episode is that it was a better courtroom drama than anything She-Hulk produced.
Oh, well,
it was entirely about the courtroom.
But
Vader in our Patreon over at saltynerdclub.com, we actually did 12 episodes of Star Trek the original series where we did running commentary for them, and this episode really reminded me of the Menagerie parts 1 and 2, where basically, you know, like Spock is on trial, you know, Kirk's there at his court martial and stuff like that. So I you know, you mentioned stealing shit from other shows. It really felt like this was like a lift of the Menagerie, basically, without all like the intercuts from like the failed pilot. But yeah, this show is weird, isn't it? It's like you want to like it. There are elements of it that are good, but there's just something holding you back from actually like committing to like liking it. I wanted to ask Shane, maybe it was just me, or did you get like really big like previous lesbian relationship vibes from Una and her lawyer? Because like they kept referring to like something that like you know, they were friends and then something happened, they had a falling out, but it really felt like there was like some romantic connection there.
Yeah, this is the bullshit that they're constantly pulling, and Akiva's a big part of this. Picard season 2, throwback to Picard season 2, when Jerry Ryan and Michelle Hurd are at a party, and all of a sudden one of the, you know, Jerry Ryan makes a joke and is like, oh yeah, we're lovers or whatever. It was just a fucking joke while they're drinking, right? And one of the writers goes, that's it, that's what we're gonna do. And of course, what happens? We get, you know, Jerry Ryan and Michelle Hurd holding hands at the end of the final season of Picard season 1, right? And you're like, what the fuck was that? Okay, so now what do we have here in Strange New Worlds? We get this lingering handhold at the end of this episode, right, where it's like uncomfortably long. Like, as a director, even the biggest idiot directors, the guy who directed Rings of Power, like, he wouldn't have done this. Okay, they're holding hands for like 6 or 7 seconds, and it's like this lingering touch. And you know what's bullshit about it is they're doing it on purpose. It's pandering to the LGBTQ community. They don't want to go all the way there, but they want to give enough so that they can like get some cred points from that community. Like throwing like, right, like throwing in some like temporary trans characters that are throwaways, you know, and doing a bunch of bullshit like that. So that's what it's about. It's about getting points and about being honest. Look, if you're going to make them lesbians, then do it. Have it from the beginning. The reason why Nira's pissed off at Una is because, you know, they were lovers when they were 16 years old, and now you know, she left her and now she's pissed off at her. Okay, go with that if that's what the fuck you're going to do. Tell a good story. Have the characters develop if they're lesbians, and that's fine. Now, I'm glad they're not, because Una's hot and I want to keep thinking of her that way, you know, but they're pandering, and I think it's a bunch of bullshit.
Well, you know what else is kind of bringing bullshit in my head, and you know, Shane, you said they kind of fixed this later on in the season, but just how much everyone knows about Khan Noonien Singh, like how like famous he is, and the fact that you know, you have this descendant of his serving on the Enterprise under Spock, and then like when Space Seed comes around, Spock has no idea who this guy is.
It's classified. You know, like, they'll probably make it classified, just like Discovery.
The only answer they have, right?
Yeah, but does this bother anyone else that they're just playing so fast and loose with 100%?
Canon?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's ridiculous. Spock doesn't have a clue as to who Khan is during Space Seed, you know, and Uhura, who's on the ship as well, has no idea. I mean, it was stupid. You know, it's funny. La'an's character is not a bad character. Christina Chong's a good actress. You know, give her any other last name and she's fine. But you make her a Noonien Singh, and you got to ask yourself a question like, okay, if you're Hitler's relative, like 250 years later, like, and you're still like upset about it, and you're worried about, and the world is obviously upset about it. Look, we have a whole courtroom drama that just happened as a result of the eugenic wars, right? So would you keep your last name as Noonien Singh? Like, at some point, somebody changes that shit, right? How many Hitlers are there out there? Anybody? You know, I mean, even if you're a descendant, you're not going to keep the name. So it's just kind of typical dumb writing by the writer's room. You know, they're trying to create some drama with the characters that doesn't necessarily need to exist. They could have done this character without this whole storyline, in my opinion.
All right, real quick, we got a couple of super chats to get to. We have Ryan for 20 euros. Leonard Nimoy is impossible to replicate. His voice, diction, and delivery is unique. I don't blame the actors. They're in an impossible situation. I actually think that the guy who plays the new Spock is actually pretty good. It's the writers who are giving him like kind of crappy material to work with, right?
Yeah, he was better in Discovery season 2. as Spock. If you go back and watch Discovery season 2, he's serious. People take him serious. He's respected. I mean, he's a completely different character. And I hated him in Discovery season 2 because he's Michael Burnham's brother. So, yeah, I agree. It's Ethan Peck's fine. And it's classified. Ethan Peck's good. He's Gregory Peck's grandson. I mean, he's a fine actor. It's just, the showrunner and the writers. Not everybody can be a good showrunner, apparently.
Yeah, he's just not very friendly at conventions, though, right?
Well, according to Brian, I guess he was kind of mean to him. So, took his camera away.
He's got like weird privacy screens up and stuff. Bob Dorsey for $20. Saturday superstar Bob Dorsey himself. Why can't Anson Mount get good writing? He was killer in Hell on Wheels.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Well, Hell on Wheels was good for like 2 seasons, and then it kind of like went off the rails. No pun intended. But Anson Mount is probably the best part of Strange New Worlds, if you ask me. Like, he just, as Pike, like, he seems like a good captain. I kind of wish that this was just like a new ship with a new crew that wasn't kind of like stuck in the past. Like this should have been post next gen. We should have had a new crew doing new adventures instead of going backwards.
I don't
like Spock could have been a different Vulcan. I would have just liked to have seen them free themselves up from this continuity issue that they have.
I don't feel like Pike has had anything to do so far in the first 2 episodes. He wasn't even in the first episode, except for the first 2 minutes. And then this episode, all he did was the first 5 minutes he went and got the lawyer, and then the rest of the episode he sat there with the rest of his crew in the lunchroom and watched the TV and went, oh, and made some faces at the TV. That was it. That's all he did.
Well, you don't get him next week either. So
it almost feels like he was off shooting something else that he had to like.
He was having a baby. He was having a baby. So yeah, they and apparently they're not able to work around. This is the other thing that's dumb. Like when somebody's out making a TV show and they have something's going to happen, they're going to have a baby. Now, back in the day, we went back to work, but that's fine if he wants to take a few months off.
That's right. Men get 30 weeks of paternity leave now, right?
Yeah, that's
Well, but why not?
I went to work the day my baby was born.
Yeah.
I saw him get home, said peace out, and went to work.
Yeah, that kid's not going to rember anything. I mean, come on, go, go take care of your business.
Like,
and
have you met your mom?
So they could have worked around his schedule, right? They could have, and because I think you need the show. The show doesn't exist without Anson Mount. Like Discovery season 2 came around, and they said, "Wow, this guy's fantastic. We need to do a Pike show." Okay, and so I mean, should be his show. He should be in it. And they're making a huge mistake. You don't get him until episode 4, where you get a real Anson Mount, specific episode. But
there's only 10 episodes. There's only 10.
That's what I'm trying to say. Ensemble cast for a 10-episode season. No, give us Spock, give us Anson Mount.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of the Chapel Spock relationship shit. Spock is not a relationship guy. It's just, focus on science. What happened to the Strange New Worlds? Right, that's what the show is called. They're in space dock. They're in space dock for 6 episodes, guys.
They have a lot less money. That would be my.
That's the reason. That's the reason.
One thing I've always wondered in 50 years of Star Trek fandom or whatever, I've always wondered, and I'm so happy that they did this finally, is I always wondered how Spock learned to play his thing, his
lute.
Stop. It's
You're
very
just like teasing me right now.
It was the best part. I've been wondering that for decades, man.
Always
Decades.
how Spock learned how to raise his one eyebrow. I hope they do it.
Oh God, I hope they do that.
Effing episode. I freaking hate that. I don't care. You're right. I want Spock solving problems. That's what Star Trek does. It solves problems. It doesn't like go and have little relationship stuff and hallways. Oh my God, no!
I'm so upset. I'm gonna cry.
I'm gonna cry.
He cries so much in the first episode.
Ridiculous.
He cries.
Please.
No,
So
dude.
get a hold of
The thing is, when he freaking sang in that short Trek, that was just. No.
Real quick, I just want to shout out that we have almost 800 people watching the stream, which
That's our
is
most ever.
fantastic. We are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, and Kick. We would be streaming on Twitch, except for their stupid rules of simul streaming. But we appreciate everyone of you here watching us. Be sure to interact in the chat. We really appreciate it. And speaking of terrible TV shows, guys, let's talk about Marvel's Secret Invasion and how it is becoming very apparent that critics are not giving Marvel any quarter anymore. So basically, now that Secret Invasion has premiered, the first episode of the 6-episode miniseries for Disney Plus, the critics are pretty much united in the fact that like it's not very good, in the sense that it's boring. Even the positive reviews are like, yeah, it's pretty boring, but we still like it. But it's coming in as the lowest rated Marvel TV show on Rotten Tomatoes. Nick Fury returns to Earth a broken and different man. We have the Skrulls who are pissed off that it's taking so long for Fury and Captain Marvel to find them a new homeworld. So they're like, we're just going to take over Earth. And they recruit Khaleesi to kind of help them out with this thing. And they kill a bunch of characters that we don't care about. And yeah, a lot of stuff happens, and a lot of it's very boring. But they're trying to take like an espionage, like this is an espionage show. We're doing a different genre. Yeah,
unreliable narrator.
And you know, I feel like I might be being a little bit unfair to the show, because yeah, maybe by the end of the series, end of the episodes, Nick Fury does a character arc where he comes back to like the Fury that we all know and love. This is Marvel, so I'm not like too big on it. But Gary, I wanted to ask your opinion on Secret Invasion so far.
Apparently, it gets worse in episode 2. That's why I was kind of might hold off on my video review, and take in episode 2, because apparently it gets worse. 6 episodes on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
6.
That's it. 6.
And the first 2 are slow as hell. So, dude, it is another sad and broken old man character in Disney who gets chastised by not one, but 2 women in 2 separate scenes who say the same thing. And then you want to add in Ben Mendelsohn's Talos tells him again that, you know, it's your fault. By the way, we were told he's black. Nick Fury is black, and that's very important.
Oh my God!
Black in
walking
Russia,
through the streets of Russia.
Yeah, in Russia, walking the streets of Russia. Although a scene later, they have a black man walking through Russia by himself, no problem. So I watched it. The first time I watched it, I was just focused on the kind of it was just kind of dull, and then I started like getting really into the bits of the story which don't exist. I'm like, okay, maybe I missed a couple things. I always like to watch something twice if I'm reviewing it. Well, no, I have no understanding what the Skrulls want, what group Nick Fury is part of, or Maria Hill, and how did a Skrull change? Sorry, spoilers. How did a Skrull change into Everett Ross when Ross was captured and then taken by Wakanda? So how would the Skrulls know that he's part of like what the hell's going on here? I have no mental map of what this show is, and it's supposed to be this espionage thriller. And the only thing I got out of it, and if I offend anybody from Gen Z, not really sorry. The Skrulls sound like Gen Z. It's like, oh, well, you didn't do what you promised, so now I want your stuff. You know, it's like, you know, that sounded exactly like all the Freckle Jesus from Captain Black Falcon.
Yeah, she would make a great Skrull.
She would. She's like
lesbian Skrull
stuff, and now the people want it back, and we want to keep our free stuff, so we're gonna blow your stuff up, okay? You know, it's like, God, it's more of that. So it's same old Disney, and it's just a reminder of what a husk, what like it's not even a corpse, it's like little bones, maybe pieces of flesh hanging off of Marvel. Marvel is full on, like they are catching up to Disney Star Wars, and they are about to pass them in death. It's so no, I didn't like it.
Yeah, what struck me the most about this episode when I was watching it is, so like for those of you who don't know, this series was famously like reshot. Like they had like an original version that they did, and they went back and reshot the hell out of it for various reasons. I don't quite know why. But when you're watching this episode, it's the editing is so jarring.
Yeah.
Because like for instance, it starts off with like this big kind of like two-person scene. And one of the guys leaves, and all of a sudden he's being tailed by this other guy who just came out of nowhere.
Yep.
And the chase sequence that follows, the editing is so bad, like you have no idea of like where people are spatially as they're being like chased around this thing. And so like it feels like another Falcon and Winter Soldier situation where basically that series had to be completely like redone, reworked in the editing room. And this one feels very similar in the sense that like it's just like it's a very poorly told story.
Yeah.
Shane, what was your take on Secret Wars or Secret Invasion?
Well, I fell asleep in the middle of it last. Thank God I was able to get up this morning because it put me to sleep and gave me the hours I needed. But I did finish it this morning, and let's take like the one genre that is burnout, which is superheroes, and let's add it to another genre which feels burnt out, which is espionage. Let's put them together and let's have some really terrible writing, and let's get Sam back out and let's have him come and he's just mailing in the performance, you can tell. And I'm just really disappointed. And but I'm not surprised, because are any of us surprised that we're going to have one more shitty, Marvel streaming show? Not me. So I don't know.
Vader, I know that you're famously like you like seeing stuff blow up on screen. So for a show like this, that's just like people talking and walking around the streets of Russia, what was your take on it?
That was a cool ending when they blew everybody up. That was kind of neat,
But they didn't blow everybody up. They only blew like certain people up.
Yeah. I don't know. At least they did something, at least there was something that happened at the end, unlike a lot of shows that are on these days. I don't know, man. I found this show kind of boring, just like you did, to be honest with you. I don't even know if I want to bother keep watching. Finding out that it's only 6 episodes, I might watch it when I get home from work and I need something to just like put me to sleep, when I'm laying in bed. I think that'd probably be a good place to put that in there for me. What is the premise of this show? I feel like so we have this terrorist group of Skrulls that are on Earth, and you have the good Skrulls that are on the space station where Nick Fury has been living for the last 2 decades or some shit, right?
How did it become 2 decades?
I don't know.
Years. It's been like 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know, right? But and the Skrulls that are on Earth are led by some shadowy guy, but their goal is, since they don't have to, they're immune.
What do you mean by shadowy guy, Matt?
I don't know. So they're immune to radiation, so they want to like explode dirty bombs everywhere and kill all the humans, so the Skrulls can come and live on the planet. Is that the basic?
Sure, you got it.
I was confused. So were those bombs dirty bombs at the end?
I think they were supposed to be, but they never.
Dead. Nick Fury's dead. They're all dead. If those were dirty bombs,
exactly, because they did imply that they were dirty bombs. I think at one point.
I thought it was crazy. That's
what the guy in the library was. He was like a guy who makes dirty bombs, a Skrull that makes dirty bombs, right? And so
dirty stuff.
Moscow's gone.
Yeah,
Moscow's gone. It's infected. It's done.
Let me just clarify here. So basically, the Skrull terrorist group wants to start a war between the U.S. and Russia so that they nuke each other to wipe out the humans. So like the ending of this episode had them not use dirty bombs, but just use regular bombs that is going to be blamed on a pro-America terrorist organization.
America Against Russia, I think it was called.
Yeah, America's against Russians. Yeah,
America thinks Russians really bad organization.
Yeah, and so what they're trying to do is they're trying to set up the major superpowers on Earth to go to a nuclear war so that the Skrulls can take over in the aftermath. So those were not dirty bombs at the end, even though they're looking for the ability to make dirty bombs. Now, the thing that got me, Gary, I want to get your opinion on this. So first of all, there's a scene here where we get Dermot Mulroney as the United States president with James Rhodey, aka War Machine, and they say like, Nick Fury left Saber and came down to Earth, and him and Maria Hill are AWOL. And it's just kind of like, well, I mean, why? Couldn't Nick Fury just use the resources available to him as the head of like the global defense force to, stop this stuff? I mean, I get that they can't trust a lot of people, but it seems to me like they would kind of know like who in their inner circle they could trust, especially with Talos there to help, kind of ferry out, the Skrulls. It seems odd to me that they would just go completely off book for this one thing.
it seems very strange. That's why I was confused about it, because like, well, he's up there obviously, and we all know they've been setting up for movie, but they have Madam Hydra, like they have all this stuff. So like Nick Fury's not aware that Madam Hydra is trying to basically backdoor Hydra. That's what I'm assuming, because that's what's probably going to lead to the Thunderbolts. That's what. Sorry to spoil it for you guys. There's a whole thing called Dark Reign. Go read it. But but they're not going to follow they're not going to follow the canon at all. This is nothing like the comic book. But yes, I was so like, why wouldn't they know? And maybe they do. Maybe we find out later that we do, but there was no hint of that other than like a passing word. And it feels like this thing was hodgepodge together again. So if you're not catching these like little throwaway sentences and they're not showing you anything, that's part of the problem. Is it's Disney's still very tell, not show. You're supposed to like follow this. How? I still don't know why just Maria Hill and Talos and Nick Fury are the only ones involved in this. And there's scrolls everywhere, except for the guy in the beginning didn't bother testing Everett Ross to be a scroll.
And also Maria Hill was completely surprised that Talos was there in Russia. So it's like they weren't even working together. Yep. So and last we saw Talos, he was pretending to be Nick Fury, right? In Spider-Man. Yep. So like, why isn't he still like pretending to be someone of importance?
So why is and then see, I still don't understand what time. I read somewhere, I don't know if it's right, I read somewhere that this is taking place in 2025.
Yes.
Okay, but it said present day or something like that in the beginning. So it's present day there, but not here. Okay.
That's how long they thought it was going to take to produce it.
Timeline, yeah.
I can
so this is after the snap, which was like a 5-year gap. So, and
the last time we saw Nick Fury was Far From Home, right?
Well, that was Talos.
That wasn't him, but yeah.
No. Where did we see Nick Fury go? Was it Thor: Love and Thunder? What the fuck? I can't remember the post-credit scene now, where he gets up and he's like, "All right, people."
Yeah, he's on the Saber platform. Yeah.
What movie was
that? Oh man, that was a while ago. I want to say that was like Vader. You're muted.
So there's so many, it's hard to figure it out.
Yeah, I get confused now. It was Far From Home. Was that Far From Home?
I think it was Far From Home. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I just get confused easily because I don't know who is Scroll Fury anymore in the movies we've watched and who's real Fury. So
that was post flip, right? So it's already been 5 years. So where were we then? What year was Far From Home? See, this is way too
2019.
It's too much.
Okay.
It's like 47 movies and 58 series later. I don't know what's what. Mm-hmm.
So at minimum, he's been gone for 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah. And another weird thing is that, so like the Skrulls, because they're immune to radiation, they're hiding out at these different Russian nuclear power plants that have had meltdowns. And so like they're inhospitable to humans, right?
And apparently there's way more Chernobyls out there than we know about.
Well, that's actually factual. The Russians weren't known for their nuclear safety protocols, but the idea that like nobody knows where these potential nuclear places are, it's like, hey, just send over a satellite to look up radiation over Russia. You can find them. You can find them like immediately. Yeah. So there wasn't a whole lot of forethought put into this series, I don't think, or at least like, because I had heard from Chris Gore that the original script for this series was actually pretty good, but apparently they changed so much of it that like it's almost unrecognizable now. Did you guys hear it?
I've not.
I heard the same thing. I think Robert was out there saying the scripts were really good. I was shocked that they had scripts written beforehand because they usually don't. I repeat, they usually don't with their TV shows. They don't hire showrunners. They hire head writers who will basically write the first couple episodes and the last couple episodes or episode. And then they have people to fill in the middle, which isn't even a writer's room. They're given some instruction. And sometimes the writers aren't even there when they start producing this stuff. They're not even around. Wow. So the original writer for Secret Invasion effed off before the show started. So somebody else came in. And that's why that's why they had to delay every Marvel project for the writer's strike, because their whole process is basically make it up as you go. It really is obvious, by the way, that they do that. But yeah, I heard it was a decent script. We've heard that before. I've heard that Doctor Strange was going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Heard Flash was going to be awesome. Heard that too. So.
You know, speaking of the timeline, Gary. So like, what I've heard is that this miniseries takes place before the Marvels, right? Which is like the next big Marvel movie that's set to come out with Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, and whatever the hell like Monica Rambeau's character is. But if you look at the trailer for the Marvels, Nick Fury is up in Saber. He's back to his shaved head, no beard, eye patch thing. So it's just kind of like, can we infer? Yeah, can we infer from that trailer that we know how this is going to end?
Everything's good. Everything's fine. There's still a giant hand and body coming out of the ocean.
Nick Fury might be a Skrull. I'm pretty sure the president's a Skrull.
Yeah, I got that feeling. Yeah,
I think he's a Skrull. They made it very. There's like, we have some well-placed operatives everywhere. It's like, all right, so the president is a Skrull.
I just killed myself. I don't know why I do this, but
Don't do that.
Why are we worried about scrolls literally when there's a giant celestial coming out of the center of the planet?
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Just stop with it already.
I cannot get past that. I can't. The planet is literally breaking in half because there's this giant creature coming out of the middle of it and nobody gives a shit.
It's okay. The writers erased all that. We're good.
I can't with this. It is unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, just the damage to the electromagnetic shield of Earth alone would have wiped out all life on the planet.
It's just,
well, they're saving that for the next movie because the Pacific Island that got displaced when or Atlantic Island when the Celestial came out is going to blame Thor. So when Thor comes back as a sad, broken old man, he'll be responsible for the Celestial that he wasn't responsible for.
Well, Thor came back as a fat, broken man.
Yeah,
already.
Yeah.
Again, trying to find himself. He'll be definitely trying to find himself for the 17th.
Yeah, and he'll be playing Apex Legends instead of Fortnite.
Yeah, at least Chris Hemsworth is trying to fight back a bit lately.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, if you think about it for a second, I don't know how many of you guys, there's this volcano in the Canary Islands that they're predicting half the little island is going to fall into the ocean.
Potential,
and it's going to destroy the entire eastern seaboard of the United States when this happens. It's scientifically been stated, and all the theories are done.
Big tsunami,
giant tsunami, and that's just a little tiny island, right? And there's a giant creature coming out of the middle of the planet.
Out half of Europe and half of the eastern seaboard.
I can't. I can't even talk about these stupid shows anymore until they address this. They have to address this.
What do they get? How are they going to address it? Like, how do you get rid of that? Like, you're going to have like, you know what they'll do? The Marvels, they'll just have Brie Larson come in and carry it away.
So I'm really getting angry about it right now. It's pissing me off.
All right, real quick. Go ahead.
Do we think this is going to last? I mean, they just delayed everything. I mean, the last film out to 2027.
Yep.
I think
Daredevil got pushed back.
Yeah. I think we're going to see wholesale major changes with the next couple. Well, a force majeure kicks in if the writers will still be on strike. So force majeure kicks in 6 days. A lot of contracts. A lot of people are getting fired anyway. A lot of things are getting cut anyway. The producers aren't negotiating because they know they can use this opportunity to get them out of the dumb deals that they made. So unless you're really good in Hollywood, I would just be looking for other work. I would. I think things are going south.
Well said.
Really fast.
Indeed.
Hey, Kevin Feige called Terry Matalas, right? No. Maybe something that's coming there.
Maybe.
I think Terry would be better suited just to like go off and make his own version of Star Trek and call it like Star Journeys or something like that, and just not have to worry about dealing with Paramount or Kurtzman or anything.
Well, and he doesn't even need to make Star Trek. He can go make something. I mean, 12 Monkeys is fantastic. Let him go make something Marvel. I mean, I don't think he can save it. I mean, but at least it would be better than the trash we're getting now.
Terry do something original.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
At least have someone in charge of the Marvel TV stuff who oversees all the shows that can give.
Yeah, Kevin can't do it.
Yeah, the biggest problem right now with Marvel is there doesn't seem to be a plan in place. Like
No.
there doesn't seem to be any cohesion between all these different things going on.
Why would they do that? Star Wars makes money and they don't have a plan, right? So,
Are you segueing us, Matt?
no,
I am. But real quick, we got a super chat from ButterBiscuit92 for $5. Love the discussion today. Helped me get through my afternoon at work. Gary, it's always great to see you live. Yes, it is. And Gary, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Yes,
Really
of course.
appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me. It's fun.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we talked a little bit about.
before we get going, I just I wanted to address and thank No Money G and WG both in the chat for both subbing, gifting 5 subs apiece to our chat out there.
WG's a good man.
The
Yes,
chat
man.
is amazing today. We're at 950 right this moment. You know, it'd be awesome if we could get the 1,000. Gary, your crowd travels, man. It's awesome. It's awesome to see your crowd over here. So
Yes. Big shout out to
Our
Legion
crowd.
of Memers too.
It's our
Yes.
crowd.
yes, I hope some of
All
them
right,
stay.
guys.
Stick
We
around.
are the crowd.
All right, guys. So we talked about Star Trek. We talked about Marvel. Now let's talk about Star Wars. In particular, we've got some new details about the new Jedi Order movie that's coming down the pipeline. And it's exactly what you think it is. So basically, there was a casting call put out in some trade, Production Weekly, and it gave us our first look into this actual storyline of the Daisy Ridley headlining Star Wars: The New Jedi Order. So here's the synopsis, right? Set roughly 15 years after Rey's victory over Palpatine and the end of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, the sequel delves into Rey's courageous endeavor to restore the Jedi Order, where she assumes the role of a mentor to 2 promising young students, a girl and a boy. As their training progresses, it becomes evident that the girl possesses extraordinary abilities destined to emerge as the future leader. And I can guarantee you that the boy turns to the dark side and he's the bad guy.
Why is it the
So-
girl? Why does the girl get all the powers? What is what?
Exactly? But
Hollywood.
it's the Force is female. It's Kathleen Kennedy's feminist agenda going on here. But this is the first truly kind of like hardcore description that we've gotten from the storyline, which is being written by Stephen S. DeKnight, who does Peaky Blinders. He was also the creator of the Apple TV series C. So I wanted to get your guys' take on this. Gary, what's your take on this outline for the new Jedi Order?
If it's true, which I'm not sure it is, but if it's true, I could totally believe it. I mean, like, could we not? Like, this sounds really accurate. It hits all the beats.
It does.
It's all the beats of Disney Star Wars. And listen, I don't usually like to say this, but I mean, I like to have job security. I do, and this sounds like job security to me.
Exactly.
No. So bring it. I am for acceleration. I want this to happen. I want them to do 3 Phoebe Waller-Bridge Indiana Jones films.
Yes.
I want them to do 5 seasons of She-Hulk. Bring it on. Do it.
So
Bring it.
you're like Emperor Palpatine. Yes.
Yeah.
Feel it.
Let's on fire. Let's go.
Make your terrible stuff so we can talk about it.
Things
Let's
need
go.
to hit bottom before they change, and that will accelerate the descent to the bottom. And that's all we can hope for now. It is way past the point of no return. Way past.
Matt Vader 74. What's
Yeah.
your take on this
Oh.
plot leak from the Acolyte?
I can't add anything to what Gary said. It sounds perfectly accurate for what we've gotten so far. It's dripping with Kathleen Kennedy and her Forces female bullshit. It's just yeah. I'd say it sounds like they're right in line with what they've done before. You know, what else can you say? Let's see it so we can keep our YouTube channels going, I guess, right? So why not?
Shane,
What the
Shane
heck?
there seems to be this trend in like genres that typically women don't like to watch, like science fiction, fantasy, stuff like that. It's typically a male-oriented genre where the people in charge seem to be, really pushing female protagonists over the males, which, isn't terrible as long as like the characters are good. But we've had multiple instances of bad female lead characters in these situations. And it almost sounds like that they're positioning this to have like a Daisy Ridley replacement that they can like, you know, kind of go forward with. So what's your take on this, you know, feminization of Star Wars and Hollywood in general?
Well, I think what Gary said was right. You know, we now need to make a mad dash for the bottom so that there can be some correction. You know, I am obviously constantly fighting for a lack of job security because I want everything to be good. But, you know, there comes to a point where there's a tipping point. And I think we're there. You know, a really important person who works in the industry once told me that they cannot they can't do anything bad with women in these movies and these TV shows. They just can't. There's a pushback. I mean, look at any show. When was the last time you saw a woman in a role where she was the butt of the joke or was the problem or the bad person? It just doesn't exist. You know, even this last Star Trek episode we were talking about, like the courtroom drama, they had a bunch of women, you know, in the show. The one guy they brought in to do it was the idiot who sat next to Una and said, "Oh, you know, you should take the plea deal." And she's like, "Can't we talk about this in private?" He was a complete idiot. They can't hire a woman to be in that role because they can't talk down to women. And so what happens, they're stuck. And all these showrunners and all these people are stuck if they want to keep working, because the moment they start putting women in a bad spot is the moment they don't get hired to do more jobs. And in this situation with this Rey thing, I mean, it's just so typical. I mean, you know, I don't want to see Rey come back. You know, I didn't care about it in the last movies, but having her come back and training up a new girl to be a new, you know, girl boss or whatever you want to call them is just another way for them to go. Honestly, I doubt if they even get there. Yeah. If this film even gets made, I'll be shocked. I'm still waiting to see what happens with the prequel they're doing, and we'll see where that goes.
Maybe they'll set the movie. Maybe she'll take the two kids to Jack Black and Lizzo's planet, and she can set up the new.
And Lizzo will eat them.
Yeah, the new training academy there, under the big bubble with all the droids. That'd be cool.
God, I hope the young lady's a brunette British woman. More inclusivity. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah,
indeed.
They're a meme right now. Like, even the Access media is like, we'll see if these movies get made. Like, yeah, it's such a joke,
dude. It's weird seeing the Access media actually tell the truth for once when it comes to these things. Like it really is kind of like a weird reversal. But speaking of radical feminists and Star Wars, let's talk about the news about Leslie Headland potentially being fired from Lucasfilm.
Former Harvey Weinstein assistant.
Her show, The Acolyte, canceled. So Leslie Headland, who is a well-known lesbian radical feminist, she came out against George Lucas, called Star Wars patriarchal. And she was also the enabler of Harvey Weinstein, one of the biggest, terrible people in Hollywood. She came out, or I should say Doomcock and Cameron Pasha came out recently with this inside scoop that Leslie Headland has been unceremoniously fired from Lucasfilm, and that her show The Acolyte is now in kind of like a weird limbo where it's sort of canceled, but it's already been shot, so it's sort of not. So nobody knows what's going to happen with this show, but they do know that going forward, Leslie Headland is not going to be associated with Lucasfilm. And, you know, with the recent kind of justification of Indiana Jones 5, where Doomcock was proven right on a lot of like his reporting, and I trust Cameron Pasha's reporting because he's a guy with integrity, and Cameron doesn't BS, right? So like if his source that he trusts is telling him that Leslie Headland's out at Lucasfilm, I tend to believe it. And it's kind of funny because this firing comes right after the big revelation that the first trans actress, aka a man, is going to be headlining one of the major characters in The Acolyte. So you have all of Leslie Headland's kind of like, you know, radical feminist LGBTQIA BS, you know, injected into the latest Star Wars TV show, which is going to be the next big thing after The Mandalorian. And all of a sudden she's fired. And this is in the wake of Disney firing a bunch of employees, having like major like financial losses and all this stuff. So I wanted to get your guys' take on this. Do you think that this rumor is true, and why do you think it happened? Gary, do you have any thoughts on this?
I don't think it's true. I want it to be true so bad. So I'm praying for this one to be true.
Mhm.
We'll know in the next 48 hours. If Leslie Headland, former Harvey Weinstein assistant, woke biatch and horrible for Star Wars talking shit about George Lucas, is gone, that would be massively huge news. It would be on Deadline. It would be on the Hollywood Reporter. And if it happens, awesome. Freaking great. Because I think we were talking about this on Friday Night Tights last night. I think The Acolyte will be the worst thing Disney Plus has done. Like, bar none. It'll be worse than She-Hulk. It'll be worse than Obi-Wan. It'll be worse than anything.
Job security.
But as far as I know, could be wrong, is the show is shot. It's shot. So if they shit can it, they cancel her. Fucking awesome. Fire her, where she because she should have never been hired in the first place. But right now, I'm very much at a wait and see, and I find it hard to believe that they would announce the casting of that actor. And get that joke there. Sorry, I'm gonna get and then fire her. It's like Disney controls all of their marketing. Okay, there's no factions when it comes to marketing. There's one marketing department. They control all the flow of the information. Sure, there's corporate politics and people fighting and hating each other all the time. That is everywhere. That's fine. But I would find it very hard to believe that they would announce that casting and fire her and then not announce it. Like Leslie Headland wouldn't say anything. Disney wouldn't say anything. Maybe they're getting their PR together. That's always a possibility. Then I would say 48 hours. And usually they like to release that kind of stuff middle of the night, Sunday night, when they've, nobody saw Victoria Alonso getting fired. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw Bob Chapek getting fired. A lot of people said he was going to be around to save stuff. He got fired in the middle of the night on a Sunday. Latondra, our girl Latondra, the CEO of the diversity and inclusivity CEO, was canned. Nobody saw that coming. Oh, sorry, she left in the middle of the week,
right? Crying,
holding her books and stuff from her desk. She voluntarily left. So yeah, we'll see. That would be big news if another. I mean, listen, there's precedence for this. Yeah, I fully agree with you. There's precedence for this. Kathleen Kennedy likes to hire and fire people a lot. She's very good at not being good at hiring. So I could see it, but I just think it would be big news. So I'm going to wait and see.
Yeah, I just can I piggyback onto Gary real quick here and just say, like, I agree. I don't think that it's probably going to happen, because if it does happen, then it opens up the can of worms, right? So now, listen, right now, you can't fire an LGBTQ person of this level. You can't.
Unless you're a woman.
I don't even think you can. I mean, here's the thing: is if they do, it opens up the possibility for other people to do it, because Hollywood works based on fear. Right. So if nobody can do it, right, the moment somebody does do it, now other people can do it. And that'll actually open up the way for there to be less of a power struggle with the people who are kind of controlling the whole diversity element of Hollywood right now, and make it a little easier. And then we can find some balance where we actually bring in people who are good at their jobs. And that's why people get hired, instead of being hired for their sexual, orientation or their skin color. That's what we really want is fairness in Hollywood. And you can't start doing that until you're allowed to fire the people who need to be fired. And so I would like to see it, but I'm with Gary. I don't think it's true.
Isn't it interesting though that this rumor gets put out there, and then all of a sudden they put out there to the websites that this new dude who's a chick is now in this Acolyte movie or Acolyte show. It's like
to distract from it, maybe
to distract. Yeah, exactly.
It's not like they don't do that.
Right.
They do. Like, they absolutely will put out opposing. Lucasfilm and Disney are famous for making announcements to get around some bad news. We're going to announce a movie. Hey, Deadpool 3's coming. Yeah, our stock is sucking right now. Like that happens, but the news is still real. It's like they're still making Deadpool 3. And I'm sure they have every intention of casting this person or making this show. And they can always be, like I said in my last video, in this like little gray area using the access media to keep them in plausible deniability, right? I get it, but they're pretty incompetent too at this point, and they can't write anything. So you can't announce anything. You can't. An actor strike is coming 6 days from now. So, like, why would you? She's already been cast. Like, she's already in the show. So I don't know. Alls I know is there's lots of rumors. Listen, we talked about rumors all the time in my comic shop. We Reddit rumors and stuff. Most of this stuff, folks, originates on Reddit. Just saying. It does. I was an avid Reddit user for many, many years. Gave up on them about a year or two ago, but I was on that platform all the time, and some of the stuff was spot on, especially the Game of Thrones stuff. That was usually really, really accurate, and some of it was just wildly inaccurate. You just have fun talking about it, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. But when it comes to the truth, we just got to kind of wait and see. We got to wait.
Let me put this out there to all of you, because I'd like to hear your opinions on it. One of the reasons that I lend some credence to this rumor, not only does it come from Cameron Pasha, but I have heard rumors that Leslie Headland was angling for Kathleen Kennedy's position at Lucasfilm. And that, Kathleen Kennedy was set to step down after Indiana Jones 5, but because Indiana Jones 5 is going to underperform, Kathleen Kennedy is probably going to want to hold on to her position. And we know how much of a ruthless bitch that she is when it comes to retaining power. So I think that Kathleen Kennedy knew that Headland was making maneuvers to take over Lucasfilm, or at least be her replacement after Kennedy stepped down. And so she fired her in order to protect her own position at the company, which is not uncommon within Hollywood. So I wanted to hear what you guys thought about that.
That's some Game of Thrones shit going on right there, man.
For Lucasfilm, right? This is for
Lucasfilm.
Angling for Lucasfilm, but that means she would be angling with Bob Iger, okay? Because Bob Iger will make that decision. He lords over Lucasfilm now. So, Kathleen Kennedy's the president, but Bob Iger's the big boss. So she'd have to be angling.
But he's an interim big boss, right?
Yeah, but he'd still make the decision, right? And believe me, I think he's out of here. And he's gonna leave.
I wish this had come from Mike Zero and not Cameron personally, because then we would know the truth.
I mean, the thing is, can you put this out of the realm of possibility? No. But she is just a showrunner who was hired. I think Lucasfilm. I think it's Dave Filoni's being positioned to take over. I have heard from very good sources that Favreau's out. Favreau's been done.
What I heard.
He's finishing up. He is going to be partaking writing a little bit of Mandalorian season 4 and then right off because he's over it.
Best thing he could do for himself.
Is he going to go hang out with James Gunn? Is that what he's going to do?
I think Filoni, I don't think he's qualified at all, but I think they're positioning him to at least run Star Wars. Will they put another president in? Leslie Headland is a president. Where is her qualifications other than being a Judas goat for freaking Harvey Weinstein? And that's a hard one to believe.
Yeah, the chat is talking about getting sold to Apple. Is there any credence to that?
Lucasfilm or Disney?
I'm not sure.
Yes,
they can afford them both at this point.
That would be pretty wild, right?
That would be wild. That would be wild. But I will use the words of J. Michael Straczynski when he's talking about Babylon 5. He's all, studios hang on to IPs harder than anything, whether they're using them or not, because it's always, for one, it adds to their studio's value. It adds to the value. And this is a thing, even if we're not making anything, we can make it some day from now. So that's why he's had such a hard time with B5 and other things. I would see Disney selling Pixar before Lucasfilm.
There's also all the licensing that goes along with owning those IPs, which is like free money essentially. Yeah. But I just find it interesting that, like, if it's true that Leslie Headland was kind of angling for the head position at Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy could just say, like, the TV show that she was making was unwatchable. She wasted all this money, basically scapegoat her.
It's a big risk.
And fire her. Yeah.
I'm gonna get hired.
She's done it before.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get hired by I mean, like, she's a snake. She worked for Harvey Weinstein. She was an assistant for Harvey effing Weinstein. And she's in Hollywood. So I mean, pretty much being a snake, you have to be a better snake than a creative person nowadays. That explains Akiva Goldsman too. You just got to be better at the art of bullshit than actual writing these days, and that's part of the big problem.
Amen.
But man, that was one hell of a move to get, beg Kathleen Kennedy for the job, get the job, then go for her job. That's a better show. I'd watch that.
It is some Game of Thrones shit.
That is.
Real quick, just want to shout out. We've hit a milestone here on Salty Saturdays with over 1,000 concurrent viewers on our live stream.
Ooh,
Thank you all for tuning
Congrats.
in. We really appreciate that. And of course, we got some super chats real quick. JT Gunn, Late Night with Cat for $2. Hey nerds, Gary and Shane, what's up?
What's up,
JT?
guys?
What's up?
He doesn't. I guess he doesn't like me anymore. Or whatever, JT.
We got
like you.
Big Worm for $5. Hail! 100% our crowd found the Fellowship through Star Trek Discovery reviews from Gary, where I found out it wasn't just me. Found all y'all. Plus, after that,
Awesome.
Thank you for finding us,
Gary.
And
I
thank
do
you-
have to say that your short videos, your like 30-minute long videos that you guys have been putting out, have been fire lately. I've been enjoying your stuff so much. It is just next level. So
Yeah, and Gary has done so much for Entertainment Tube in general. Like we're kind of the redheaded stepchild of genres on YouTube, where like we don't have our own category. YouTube doesn't really push us, and yet Gary is like the godfather of the genre here, and
Yes, sir.
And he's the rising tide that's lifting all boats. So we really appreciate him.
Come on, guys, let's do this. Well,
Yeah.
We got David Nelson for 199. Hail the 199. We are Legion.
yes, they are.
Hail the 199. And we have Bob Dorsey for $10. Again, Bob Dorsey, Saturday Superstar. Don't worry, guys. I heard a rumor Kennedy is on her way out.
We
Don't say. I don't think I've heard that one before.
She will leave someday. She will. That will happen.
She's got to die.
One
Yeah.
day.
She's
All
not
right, so
young.
And one more real quick. I want to say thank you to GJJ. I think these guys are messing with me with all their own initials. GJJ for gifting 5 memberships a little while back. Thank you so much. Appreciate that again.
that is fantastic. And while we're on the topic of Kathleen Kennedy, let's talk a little bit about some proposed Indiana Jones spinoffs.
Oh my God.
We all know that James Mangold, who's my biggest fan, has
He
made
really
this
liked
movie. Yes, he really did. He's made a 5th Indiana Jones movie. And apparently there was some talk about doing some spinoffs with Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character. And Mangold has come out on the record and says, I'm not interested. I refuse. I just can't do it. The amount of lore and Easter eggs and fan service starts to become antithetical to any of this stuff at a certain point. It isn't storytelling anymore. It's large-scale advertising. Do you think he kind of clued in on the idea that nobody likes Phoebe Waller-Bridge? But here's the really interesting part about this article, where it says Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy, though, wasn't so quick to close the book, saying it's entirely possible, but we're not having any of those conversations right now. We're just focused on finishing this with Harrison. And we already know that there's a Disney Plus spinoff reportedly in the works for an Indiana Jones TV show. And but the idea that there will be any more Indiana Jones movies seems to be off the table. So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about the possibility of Phoebe Waller-Bridge centric Indiana Jones TV spinoff with Kathleen Kennedy being the one behind it? Shane, what's your thought on this?
Well, you can't put nothing past her. Of course, she'd take the opportunity to capitalize on it. But the fact remains is nobody's going to watch it. Nobody wants to see. Listen, you need to just let Harrison Ford go away, and we just need to leave Indiana Jones the way it is. I don't think Disney's in any position to create any more bullshit. If they came out with an Indiana Jones series in the next couple, 2-3 years, it would just be another big, dirty, nasty egg on top of everything else they've done. So, all the rumors about Kathleen Kennedy being fired are true until they're not. But I don't think she'll make it to an Indiana Jones series, frankly speaking.
Gary, what's your take on this? Do you think that if Indiana Jones 5 underperforms at the box office, wouldn't that kill any talk about any potential spinoffs?
You would think. And I think it already has. I don't think there's any question that things going to underperform. They're preparing us for it right now.
Mhm.
How much? I guess that's the question. It's entirely possible Kevin Feige would come on Friday Night Tights. It's entirely possible.
Oh man, that would be something.
Whoa.
Would he take a piss on the stream?
It's entirely possible Gavin McInnes might come back to Friday Night Tights. It's entirely possible.
Oh man,
Gary, not to derail the conversation a bit, but what was your thought process when that happened? When Gavin McInnes basically stood up and just urinated on stream?
I was in shock. Like I am aware of his content, and I've been watching him for years, and I fully expected to see his ass. I did not expect to see that. So, and plus I couldn't see anything. I'm like, so I just, you laugh it off, and I'm like, oh, what do I do? So I'm waiting for YouTube to take the thing down. I'm like, oh shit, they didn't take it down. Let's keep going. I got super chats to read. So I just did my job, and then I'm like, we'll cut it out later. You know, I'm like, it's too late. I know anybody who is going to screen capture that and capture it, they're going to. Like, there's nothing I can do about that. You can't edit a stream in process. So I'm like, do I cut off the show and give him all the power, or do I just like risk my entire channel and do my obligatory reading of super chats? And that's what I did. I said, F it, let's go. And we went on for another hour or so. And we cut it out and we re-uploaded it, and it's been ripped off of Nerdrotic Live for a completely different reason. I'm not going to say what reason, because I don't want it, because it got mass flagged. It got just mass flagged. It was up for like a month. And it was age restricted already, but then they took it down. It'll be on Rumble if you want to watch the episode, not hiding from it. My thought process was, Gavin, I like you. I even liked the conversation we were having. It was pissing people off, but I think we were holding our ground. It's good to have somebody come in and question us, and we have to reinforce our beliefs. And it's not even a belief, it's my life. And I think he got schooled when he asked the question. And I think he was trying to, get out of it by asking this question, was asking about us personal lives. Like, do you have, do you pay your bills? Do you have a job? Do you have a wife? Do you have kids? And we all just said, yeah, yeah. We're all responsible adults. We like this stuff. So your narrative of like dorky nerds in basements that James Mangold had, who's making an Indiana Jones film, a film based, completely built by nerds. And financially supported by nerds, by the way. And it just proved that, no, we can like our stuff, and we can still be adults. We can still be grown-ass men and women and pay our bills and raise our kids and take them to school. And I thought that was a really good conversation to have, until he whipped out his little pee-pee that YouTube didn't even recognize.
That's the only answer he had for your guys' smart comments back.
Well,
you do a show that long, it's gonna happen. I mean, I'm not gonna say somebody's gonna get up, and I'm definitely not me, is gonna whip out their little pee-pee, but you do live shows long enough, shit's gonna happen. It's just gonna happen.
This is true. So speaking of taking the piss, Matt Vader 74, James Mangold seems to be very adamant about not praising Phoebe Waller-Bridge or his own movie to a certain extent. He seems to be kind of like moving on because he knows the writing's on the wall. This film's not going to do very well. So what's your take on this?
I don't know, man. This is when you hit me with the question that I'm not prepared to answer for, and I look like a jackass every week. My take on it is the movie is going to underperform, and we're going to go and we're going to come back. We're going to go, it was a Indiana Jones movie. We think, and then we're going to move on, and Indiana Jones is going to go the way of dead franchises, I guess. Nobody wants to see any more spinoffs of this, especially ones with Phoebe Waller-Bridge and her stupid feminist agenda leading the way. No, nobody wants that.
I don't want to see one with Chris Pratt.
No. I mean, Indiana Jones ended at the end of Last Crusade, and that's all there is to it. These people can talk about these other sequels all they want, but I mean, but everybody knows that those movies ended when those 4 guys jumped on their horses and literally rode off into the sunset, and the rest of this stuff is money grabs. And I'm just to the point now where I don't care what James Mangold has to say. He's a liar. You know, they've caught him in lies about reshooting the ending and all this kind of stuff, and you really can't trust what the dude has to say going forward. And now he's going to go make Star Wars movies or some shit, right? So I guess it is what it is. I'm having a hard time being a 53-year-old man who's been a nerd his whole life, watching all of my IPs that I grew up with loving turning to complete shit. I don't want to go watch Indiana Jones next week. I kind of have to because of everything that's happened with the channel and that dude and everything. So I got to have an opinion, but I kind of wish I was able to not like I've done with The Flash. It's like, I'm not going to go watch The Flash. I don't care. I'm just done. I don't care about that movie. And it is what it is, man.
It's getting harder. It's
Yeah.
getting much harder for channels who just want to be like review channels. Like I
Right.
got pulled into the whole culture war thing, and now I'm part of it. So like I watch this stuff, and
I mean,
it's obligatory. It
your-
is. Like if I was a
your
normal
whole,
fan, I would not touch this
Right.
shit.
Your whole we need this to keep going because we like job security. That's true. But I would much rather do that on with
Well, it's
things that I don't love. I love Star Trek. I love Star Wars. I love Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is my Raiders of the Lost Ark is my number one movie.
My number one thing
all
too.
time. It's my number one
Lord of
movie.
the Rings, but it's the best movie, single movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best single movie
Yeah.
ever made. And
Ever made.
I mean, this is what you have a different path for your channel. Your channel's great the way it is, and you guys are curating it the way it is, and I'm empathizing with you, right? So like I'm going to see this as somebody who comments on the culture. If I was if this wasn't my day job, I wouldn't go see it. I just wouldn't. But I need to know what I'm talking about, right?
And
And
that's what I tell people.
When I say normal fan, I want to clarify that is like just not being on YouTube and just being the regular fan that I've been all my life. There was stuff I just like that looks effing stupid. I'm not going to go watch it, but now I watch more effing stupid stuff, and it does wear on you as a fan. It absolutely wears on. Matt's human, right? He doesn't want to see this shit happen. And I feel for you, buddy, and that's why we were fighting for this to like maybe salvage something. Now we're just trying to salvage culture. It's not one franchise.
They can't. It's just they can't even do stuff like Lord of the Rings right. How do you fuck up the Lord of the Rings? It's just they can't not screw things up. Everything they touch just turns to complete shit, and it's so frustrating. It really is frustrating.
Yeah, real quick, we got a super chat for £5 from Rambam 3000. La Riena just streamed from WDW's Indiana Jones stunt show, and when the announcer mentioned Dial of Destiny, the audience reaction was muted.
There you go.
There's a serious lack of excitement for this new Indiana Jones film.
I have a question for you, Matt.
Yes.
So okay, say it just vastly underperforms, does about $500 million worldwide. What effect do you think that will have on Lucasfilm?
I don't think it's going to have any effect, honestly. Like Lucasfilm at this point, like they've been treading water for so long that as long as it's not like a solo level bomb, I think they're just going to shrug it off. They're going to keep going the way that they've been going for so long. Under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, it's just like no matter how bad she messes up, Disney's just like, oh, okay, whatever. But now that she's lost a couple of allies on the Disney board and stuff like that, she might have a little bit more pressure to retire and hand the reins over to someone new. But until that happens, like we're just going to get more of the same going forward, in my opinion. But speaking of franchises and IPs going to shit, let's talk a little bit about The Flash and how big of a problem it is for the DCEU. Now, I found this really interesting article on Variety, which is basically the title is "The Flash Box Office Disaster Exposes DC's $1.1 billion problem for Warner Brothers." And if you read through this article, by the way, all the article links are in the description of the video, by the way. It basically says what we've all been saying on this show for a long time, which is basically ever since James Gunn came out and said that he's rebooting the DCEU, audiences have lost complete interest in the 2023 DCEU slate. Shazam 2 really underperformed. In fact, it's considered a bomb. The Flash, which was supposed to be the best comic book movie ever made, is now tracking in as being a huge flop, major flop. And analysts are worried that Blue Beetle and Aquaman are going to meet the same fate simply because audiences don't care. There's no reason to go see these movies because they're divorced from a bigger universe that's being rebooted. But in addition to that, The Flash also had troubles with Ezra Miller, and his bad behavior. And yes, I said he, because I refuse to say they, them for that stupid thing.
Thank you.
But in addition to that, the special effects seem to be getting a lot of criticism, and everyone's saying oh, we heard that this was supposed to be the greatest superhero movie of all time, but it's just kind of okay. So Warner Brothers is in a really tough position here because they've invested so much money into these DC projects, and it doesn't look like they're going to be making them back. And so this Variety article basically puts forward the question, okay, what does Warner Brothers do going forward with the DCEU? So Shane, I know that you enjoyed The Flash. Brian runs a DC channel for you guys, so I wanted to get your take on this. In fact, you even had an article that you wanted to share with us about the Flash box office and Blue Beetle. And
it's from the same article you got there. It's just, if you scroll down, there's a chart that I think speaks volumes to what's going on with superhero movies, DC, and the Flash specifically. So if you take a look at this chart, and I've never figured out how to zoom in on these damn things, but if you guys can see it here, it starts with Man of Steel, and it kind of goes through all the DC movies for superhero movies. And as you go down, take a look at the red bar. Okay. Now we got, I didn't know you could do that. Just leave the whole thing up, but look at the red bar specifically. Wow. Yeah. Just leave the whole thing up though, because it'll come in to make more sense if you do. Okay. So if you see Man of Steel is the top one, and then you got Batman versus Superman, which of course every nerd on the planet was going to go watch that one. From Batman v Superman, if you just look at this red line, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, right till you get to...
And that's the domestic opening weekend gross.
That's the domestic opening weekend, right? And now Joker, which is an outlier because what a great movie, right? And it just was not in the same type of framework. Now come down and look at Birds of Prey, a little bit less. Now look at Wonder Woman 84 and The Suicide Squad. Okay. Now take the Batman out because it's a brand new Batman movie and everybody wanted to see what the hell was going to happen, right? Black Adam, which thank God Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is such a master at marketing. Okay. And if you come down here and look at Shazam! Fury of the Gods, that lines up. Now look at the Flash. Okay. Well, shit. That kind of breaks the mold a little bit, right?
It's the same as Shazam though.
What's that? Yeah. So good. You can go back up to Shazam, right? And take a look. It's about the same. I'm not saying The Flash is going to be a good movie or it's going to break any records, but it does break the interesting mold here. And I'll be interesting to see how far out this the yellow line goes and the blue line goes to see if it breaks this mold.
Yeah, the orange line is domestic post-debut gross, so the entire domestic box office of its theatrical run, and then the blue is the international gross.
And it's doing terrible right now. Like it's just being utterly destroyed at the box office. Part of that is a streaming problem. The fact that we can watch a movie 3 weeks, Fast X is on streaming. It's like, what the hell? Right. And it's unbelievable. So The Flash was, I had a fun time. I went and watched The Flash. I enjoyed it. I'm not a huge Flash fan. I never was with the comic books. He wasn't my favorite character. I'm kind of a Grant Gustin guy. I rather like him as the Flash. And Ezra Miller was arguably the worst part of Justice League for me. I really hate his annoying fucking character and the way he's just kind of crying, and I don't like him really. But I gotta tell you, he played two different people really well in this movie. Like the dichotomy between those two characters was he did a good job, even though he's a raging piece of shit. And so so you can go watch the movie, eat some popcorn, and it's just fine. But it's still overall just a bland superhero movie. Like I was not excited to go see it. I watched it, ate some popcorn. It wasn't bad. The graphics were shitty. Those babies, what the hell was up with those? Gary, you said you brought up the Ally McBeal baby. And I was like, oh my God, that is exactly the perfect description for those babies. I mean, come on. If you're going to put that much money into a movie, get that right, at least. You know, so I think there were a lot of problems with it. Overall, I had fine time, but you know, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this the beginning of the end or what?
Well, Gary, I wanted to ask you about, you know, kind of like the meta picture of what this means for Warner Brothers, because ever since Dave Zaslav came in with Discovery and started cleaning house, like he was kind of saddled with this 2023 slate where, like, you know, he didn't have any say in what was getting made or what was getting reshot or like whatever. But he did know that because COVID kind of threw everything for a loop and there were so many reshoots going on with these movies, he had a problem. And it looks like this problem is going to be costing Warner's upwards of $1.1 billion. And they just did a rebrand with HBO Max, where it's now Max and all this other stuff. And James Gunn came in and basically said, like, all these other movies aren't going to matter until I have my Superman movie out. Although they did say that Blue Beetle is now officially part of like the DCEU relaunch. But what's your take on this on a broader scale of like how DC is going to be going forward with Warner Brothers?
I think I'm starting to lean towards DOA. I don't think they should have released these movies. I think they should have. I mean, they're losing so much money anyway. Mm-hmm. They never would have done this. But if you ask me, you're asking me, I would have gone, if we're going to reboot this thing, I wouldn't put this out because it will, like, your brand is your brand. It stands there as this monolith and it gets chipped away every time you put out horrible content that goes against it. And we know the Snyder fans and all this and back and forth. But you just, sorry to jump back on this, or you could have kept Henry Cavill and given the Snyderverse an end. Yes. Like a proper end, like make another movie, put it on Max or something like that, and that could come out in 2024. That could end everything, and then 2025 you restart. That still wouldn't have helped because each flop damages your brand and it gets whittled away, and this big monolith turns into like this little freaking stick sticking out of the ground that people don't care about. And you showed that graphic, and people just don't have the interest in DC that they do in Marvel, the normies. That's true. And DC had everything. To screw this up shows how dumb they are, how like little work. And these are supposedly smart people, but you can't convince me of that if they won't do basic research that would make your movies better. And just getting another a Marvel guy, James Gunn, how did that work out with Joss Whedon when he came in and redid the Justice League? Different situation, but you're still getting an old Marvel guy. And James Gunn, even if he makes a good movie, I think it's going to kind of perform like the Batman. The Batman is a Batman movie, and it had a huge opening weekend. You saw that graph, and it had a bigger opening weekend than the Joker, and then just petered out because it was too long, bad third act, and it wasn't $1 billion movie. A Batman movie not being $1 billion movie is a failure.
I thought The Flash was supposed to be a Batman movie.
There you go. That's the debate we were having on F&T last night was like, what damaged The Flash? Now, obviously, it was James Gunn coming out and saying everything's lame duck. That's dumb. I do think a factor was 2 Ezra Millers because I think that counteracted what should have been a very good opening weekend because you brought Michael Keaton back. If it was just if you took 2 Ezra Millers out of it and made it a Michael Keaton Batman movie, this thing's breaking records.
Hell yeah.
It's breaking records. So to answer your question, I think it's too little too late. I think we are seeing the end of superheroes because of bad storytelling. And actually, Marvel has a lot to do. Like DC owns their success, but Marvel is poisoned the well too, and they're paying some of the price for that.
Amen. Yeah, I actually think it would have been smarter for James Gunn to have like a Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman movie lined up that was all Crisis on Infinite Earths, culminating in a Man of Steel 3, which was, which brings all of it together, and then reboot from there.
Yeah.
Like to me, that would have been the logical thing to do. So like, you give an end to the Snyderverse, you give Henry Cavill his send off as Superman, and then like you reboot it. But for some reason, he decided to basically shit on everyone's expectations because people were so excited that Henry Cavill was coming back. And I think we're seeing some backlashes with it, especially considering the fact that Aquaman was supposed to come out before the Flash. There's a lot of setup there. The Flash was supposed to reboot the universe or what have you with Flashpoint, and everything's just thrown for a loop. And it seems like no one really has like a good way to get out of that. So they're just saying like, fuck it, we're just going to start over. Matt Vader 74, you refused to go see the Flash. In fact, I invited you yet again to watch it with me today, and you were like, no, fuck off. So what's your take on this? Do you think
I'd rather
Warner
go to
Brothers,
work. Rather go to work.
Do you think Warner Brothers deserves to lose $1 billion over this?
You know, when it comes to DC, I almost consider myself just a normie. I've never been into DC movies outside, just going to eating some popcorn and going and having a fun time. I feel like superhero fatigue is kind of real. It's kind of real, and I kind of feel it's like taking a break from it. Especially with these DC movies, they don't mean anything, and these are characters that I don't care about. The Flash, he's not Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman, right? It's no different than if they had made a Cyborg movie. I wouldn't have any interest in going and seeing that either. Aquaman with Jason Momoa, we already know he's going to be playing somebody else, so that's done. Don't care. And who the hell gives a shit about the Blue Beetle? Nobody's half the nerds out there have never even heard of the Blue Beetle. That movie's it's done before it's even been released.
Well, you saw the future of Aquaman, right, Vader?
I don't care.
Well, it's in the close. You need to go see the Flash so you can see the future of Aquaman because it's in the ending credit scene.
Yeah,
that's the future of Aquaman.
I'll watch it.
Worst end credit scene of all time.
Yeah, it's
on my TV when it comes out on whatever streaming service it's going to come out on, and that's how I'm going to watch all these DC movies. They're not worth taking half my evening and going and spending $50 at the theater to go watch these movies, and that's just how I feel about it. So.
Well, Hollywood has taken like uber fans, been fans forever. I didn't miss a superhero movie. Anything that was slightly superhero, I went to.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I'll skip a Marvel series.
Right.
But I'll skip a DC movie. I'm not going to see them all. Life's too short. Even for the channel, life's too short. Like Aquaman's going to be a tough one to convince me to go see. Like that, I do not care.
I would rather watch season 2 of the John Cena one. What's his Peacemaker? Yeah, I'd rather watch a season 2 of a Peacemaker than any of these blockbuster movies.
Oh, James Gunn's girlfriend or wife, she's got job security. So good for her. So,
she's got job security indeed.
Nerdrotic and James Gunn's wife both have job security. That's right.
Well, I wanted to just put this out there because I feel like superhero fatigue. It's not that people are fatigued with superhero movies. It's that they're fatigued with bad writing.
Yeah.
Bad storytelling. Like if these movies were good, there wouldn't be such thing as superhero fatigue. Same thing with Star Wars.
So,
right.
Like timeless movies like The Crow, Superman. Yeah. You drop Star Wars Superman today, it's a hit. It's still a hit. Raiders of the Lost Ark, still a hit.
Yep.
So it's bad storytelling. It's Hollywood fatigue.
I'll retract my superhero fatigue statement and say yes.
Well, if it makes you guys feel
bad writing fatigue for sure.
If it makes you guys feel any better, James Gunn did just come out on the Michael Rosenbaum show, and he spent 2 hours opening up his heart, and he basically said the exact same thing. There's not superhero fatigue; it's bad writing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a guy who's made a lot of successful superhero stuff and a lot of a good, so there's a chance when Superman comes back around that maybe it's reinvigorated, and if he's able to create something awesome, then maybe there's a chance. But it's definitely the writing's on the wall.
Let's throw out the what if, because it's possible.
Yeah.
That he makes a good Superman movie and it doesn't do well, but it's good. Like we come back from it going, that was good, I liked it, and it just totally underperforms. Like Hollywood's going to pull the plug on it.
Well, I think the second thing that we need to consider is the fact that the window between theatrical release and streaming release has been so shortened.
Absolutely.
That most people are like, I'm not going to see it in the theater, I'll wait for it to come on streaming, because it's literally like 2 weeks later it's on streaming. So I think that until Hollywood decides to actually give like a legit window, Like it used to be like 3 months before it hit like home video or something like that.
6
Until they 6, yeah.
It
Until
used
they
to
go
be
back to
back
like
in the
that.
day. It was
Yeah,
a
until they-
year in some cases way back in the day.
Yeah, and until they go back to that extended window, I don't think you're going to see box office numbers rebound like they should be.
Oh,
So-
they're definitely
I
not,
agree.
because nothing's coming out next year.
That's true too.
Like what
yeah.
Marvel has in production right now,
Yeah,
and it's just the Captain America movie.
our
That's it.
YouTube ratings are going to be very big in 2024. I predict,
Uh,
because we're going to be the only ones producing content.
stream a lot. If you want some unsolicited advice during COVID, hit that streaming, because nothing else is going on. So I had
Exactly.
nothing to watch up, so I might as well just talk to people. That'll be fun.
All right, guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. So I want to thank my expert panel of nerds for coming on and talking about all these wonderful topics. Gary, you probably don't need to do this, but where can people find out more about you? And do you have any final thoughts on the topics we discussed today?
Great topics. This show is so prepared. He's like, come in early. Here's the articles. He sent them to me like a day ago. I'm like, man, I should try this. Nah. No. No. Subscribe to the Salty Nerd Podcast. That's what I say.
Oh,
And
thank
the
you for that.
podcast.
And the podcast. All right, Shane from the Popcast.
Oh,
do
yeah,
you have
put
any
on the
final
right hat.
thoughts? Yes. Do you have any final
Yeah.
thoughts? And where can people find more of your stuff?
Yeah, my final thoughts is, God, I love streaming with you, Gary. It's like the good old days, man. I got to tell you, we're excited. I love Salty Nerd. By the way, the stuff you guys are doing, Matt, is just awesome. If you guys are not watching their Tuesday show, you need to be watching the Salty Nerd Tuesday show. And you guys are here, 1,200 of you watching right now. Jump over on Tuesdays. Really entertaining, 4 people talking. So just make sure you guys show up for that. As for us, we have a They Don't Know Spock video coming out tomorrow. And make sure you guys check that out. It's gonna explain everything as to the reasons why you hate Strange New Worlds and hate what they're doing to Spock and the way he should be treated. So check out that video and all of our stuff. So thank you so much.
Can I ask a quick question? So
Sure.
I feel they're portraying Spock as autistic, and then they
Yeah.
make him the butt of jokes.
Mhm.
Think about that.
Oh,
I think
damn.
you're right.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Gary, you have an autistic son, is that correct?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
doubly
do.
insulting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt Vader 74. Any final
Yeah.
thoughts about what we talked about today, and what do we got going on this week on the Salty Nerd?
I don't know. What do we have going on this week? We're just before we go any farther, I just want to say thank you to Gary for gracing us with his
Oh,
presence
stop.
today. I know you Sundays, Saturday's kind of your day off. So thank you, man. It's special
problem.
that you can come hang out with us for a little bit. It was awesome when you were here in Vegas for the meetup. It was really cool
You guys
having
were
you and everybody
so
here.
effing cool. Sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
you guys were accommodating, cool. We're definitely doing the show from your place next time.
Mhm.
I'm really sorry what happened. I'm truly, truly sorry.
thank
I'm
you.
glad you guys came out the other side of it. Really good guys. Yeah, definitely hit them up if you need to do a show there. I can't like the professionalism, the setup for a new thing was tight, was so tight. So well done, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're working
Yeah.
on being able to host more than 4 people in the studio, so you'll have like your whole crew next time. Hopefully.
Yeah, and I also want to thank Shane for being here. I mean, you're no Brian, but it was good having you here. Hanging out with us.
I try.
It was cool. It was cool having
At
you
least
here.
Shane shows up to stuff.
I know.
Brian's like, dude, what? Was it
Brian,
something like that, bro?
Brian has this. I never know if it's Brian half the time because he has his fake Gollum video that he turns on where he just sits there and stares at the camera when he's not really there sitting at his desk. But and I also wanted to thank the fellowship. The chat was amazing today. It was so. It was our biggest chat ever, I think, on Saturday morning. We had over 1,200 people at one point. So thank you to all of you. I hope you took a second to push that thumbs up button for us and the subscribe button. We did have a big spike today. I've been looking at the stats and it's incredible. I really want to thank everybody, and I hope you stick around and enjoy our content because we have a lot of fun making it. And you guys are all the reasons that we do it.
Yes.
Because
we have new podcast episodes that drop every Friday. We have
Yes.
TV episodes that drop every Thursday. Our live streams are Saturday mornings and Tuesday afternoons. We do a lot of content that we put out there, and a lot of people are always surprised. They're like, "Why aren't you bigger than you already are?"
Yeah.
So good. We're just like, we don't know. That happens to be. Want to give a big shout out to all of our super chatters today. We got the Joker's Voice, Mexican Iron Man, Scotty Dub, Doomed Hub, Bob Dorsey, Setlick Gaming, T Stoney, Ryan, Latino Slant, Sci-Fi is Life, Butter Biscuit 92, JT Gunn, Big Worm, David Nelson, and Ram Bam 3000. Special shout out to the Legion of Memers and the 199. Thank you all so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. And I will not be here next Saturday, but Alex, our host, will be filling in for me. So we will have all new guests, all new topics, and all new types of fun. But until such time, stay salty, my friends.